Good day to all participants. Welcome to this complete training session on ISO/IEC 27001:2022, the globally recognized standard for information security management systems, commonly referred to as ISMS. Myself Dr. Subrata Das, and in this session, I will guide you through the structure, clauses, implementation requirements, risk management process, Annex A Controls, and audit expectations of ISO/IEC 27001:2022. I have worked extensively in management system audits covering ISO/IEC 17025, ISO 17020, ISO 17021, ISO 17065, as well as integrated systems involving ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and ISO 45001. Over the years, I have participated in more than 250 audits across sectors such as textile, chemical, laboratories, manufacturing, and service industries. Throughout this training, our focus will not only be on understanding the standard theoretically, but also on learning how organizations practically implement and audit these requirements. In today's digital era, information has become one of the most valuable assets for any organization. Organizations handle enormous amounts of sensitive information every day, including customer data, employee records, intellectual property, financial transactions, production information, business strategies, and confidential communications. If this information is compromised, leaked, altered, or lost, the organization may face severe consequences such as financial losses, reputational damage, legal penalties, operational disruptions, and loss of customer trust. Cyber threats are continuously increasing in complexity. Organizations now face risks such as ransomware attacks, phishing, insider threats, unauthorized access, data theft, malware infections, and accidental data loss. Therefore, protecting information is no longer optional. It has become a strategic business necessity. This is exactly why organizations require a structured and systematic approach toward information security management. ISO/IEC 27001:2022 is an internationally recognized standard developed to help organizations establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve an information security management system. An ISMS is essentially a systematic framework consisting of policies, procedures, processes, controls, and practices designed to protect organizational information. The primary objective of ISO 27001 is to ensure three major principles of information security. Confidentiality, ensuring information is accessible only to authorized persons. Integrity, ensuring information remains accurate, complete, and protected from unauthorized modification. Availability, ensuring information is accessible whenever required by authorized users. ISO 27001 follows a risk-based approach. Instead of applying all controls blindly, organizations identify risks and implement appropriate controls based on those risks. This makes the system flexible and applicable to organizations of different sizes and sectors. One common misconception is that ISO 27001 applies only to IT companies. However, this is not true. ISO 27001 is a management system standard, similar in structure to ISO 9001 for quality management or ISO 14001 for environmental management. Any organization that handles information can implement ISO 27001. This includes banks and financial institutions, educational institutions, hospitals and healthcare organizations, manufacturing industries, government organizations, laboratories, textile and garment industries, consultancy firms, software companies, e-commerce businesses. Even small and medium-sized organizations can benefit from implementing the standard. The key requirement is not the industry type, but the need to protect information assets. In this training session, we will systematically go through all major clauses of ISO/IEC 27001:2022. Our focus will include understanding the purpose and intent behind each clause, connecting standard requirements with real organizational practices, developing an audit perspective for evaluating compliance, understanding risk-based thinking and control implementation, learning documentation requirements, understanding how organizations establish, operate, monitor, and improve an ISMS. This structured approach will help participants understand both implementation and auditing aspects. By the end of the session, participants should be able to understand the structure and major requirements of ISO/IEC 27001:2022. Interpret key clauses and Annex A controls. Understand risk assessment and risk treatment methodologies. Participate in implementation activities. Support documentation development. Participate in internal audits. Understand how information security integrates with business operations and other management systems. This knowledge will be useful for auditors, consultants, implementation teams, students, managers, and professionals involved in governance and compliance. This session is designed to be practical and audit-oriented rather than purely theoretical. In real audits, auditors do not simply check documents. They evaluate whether risks are properly identified, whether controls are effectively implemented, whether employees understand their responsibilities, whether management is committed, whether the system actually works in practice. One important point to remember is, you do not need deep technical IT knowledge to understand ISO 27001. What is more important is developing a risk-based and system-oriented mindset. Context of the organization. Understanding the organization and its context. The organization must identify internal and external issues that can affect the effectiveness of the ISMS. External issues may include legal requirements, cybersecurity threats, market conditions, technological changes, customer expectations. Internal issues may include organizational structure, employee competence, business processes, IT infrastructure, organizational culture. Understanding context helps organizations identify risks and establish an ISM suitable for their environment. Interested parties. Organizations must identify interested parties relevant to information security. Interested parties may include customers, employees, suppliers, regulators, government authorities, investors, contractors. The organization must understand their expectations and determine which requirements will be addressed within the ISMS. These requirements may include legal obligations, regulatory requirements, contractual agreements, customer security expectations. This ensures the ISMS aligns with stakeholder expectations. 4.3 Scope of ISMS. Organizations must clearly define the scope of the ISMS. The scope defines the boundaries and applicability of the system. While defining scope, organizations consider internal and external issues, interested party requirements, interfaces with external service providers, processes and locations included. A well-defined scope is extremely important because it determines what will be audited and controlled under the ISMS. The scope must be documented and made available. 4.4 Information Security Management System. The organization must establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve the ISMS. This includes defining processes, responsibilities, interactions between processes, monitoring mechanisms, control systems, documentation. The ISMS should not function as an isolated activity. It must become part of normal business operations. Leadership and commitment. Top management plays a critical role in the success of the ISMS. Leadership must demonstrate commitment by establishing information security policy, aligning ISMS objectives with business strategy, providing resources, promoting awareness, supporting continual improvement. Without management commitment, implementation usually becomes weak and ineffective. Auditors often evaluate leadership involvement very carefully. Leadership responsibilities continued. Management must ensure adequate resources are available. This may include skilled employees, training programs, security technologies, infrastructure, time and financial support. Management must also communicate the importance of information security throughout the organization. Employees should understand that information security is everyone's responsibility. Supporting people and improvement. Leadership must support employees and encourage active participation in ISMS activities. Organizations should build a culture where employees report incidents, follow procedures, and participate in continual improvement. Continual improvement is a core principle of ISO standards. Organizations should continuously identify opportunities to strengthen security controls and reduce risks. 5.2 Information Security Policy. Top management must establish an information security policy. The policy provides the overall direction for the ISMS. The policy should align with organizational objectives, support information security goals, demonstrate commitment to compliance, support continual improvement. The policy acts as a foundation for the entire management system. The information security policy must include commitments related to meeting applicable legal, regulatory, and contractual requirements, continually improving the ISMS, ensuring protection of organizational information assets. The policy should not remain only as a document. It must guide organizational behavior and decision-making. The policy must be documented, communicated within the organization, available to relevant interested parties, Employees should understand the policy and their responsibilities. Awareness programs are commonly used to communicate policies effectively. Roles and responsibilities. Organizations must define and communicate information security responsibilities. Everyone should clearly understand what they are responsible for, what authority they have, who they report to. Clearly defined roles reduce confusion and improve accountability. ISMS responsibility assignment. Management must assign responsibility for ensuring that the ISMS conforms to ISO 27001 requirements. Organizations often appoint ISMS managers, information security officers, compliance managers, internal auditors. These personnel monitor implementation and report performance to top management. Additional responsibility clarification. Management may also delegate reporting responsibilities within different departments. However, accountability for ISMS effectiveness ultimately remains with top management. Leadership involvement remains essential throughout implementation and operation. Planning. Actions to address risks and opportunities. Planning is one of the most important parts of ISO 27001. Organizations must identify risks and opportunities that can affect the ISMS. The objective is to achieve intended outcomes, prevent undesirable effects, support continual improvement. Risk-based thinking is central to ISO 27001. Planning risk actions. Organizations must determine actions needed to address identified risks and opportunities. These actions should be integrated into business processes. Organizations must also evaluate whether these actions are effective. This ensures that risk management becomes a continuous process rather than a one-time activity. Integration and evaluation. Risk treatment actions must be properly implemented, monitored, and reviewed. Organizations should regularly assess whether risks are reduced, whether controls are effective, whether new risks have emerged. This supports continual improvement of information security performance. Risk assessment. Organizations must establish a formal information security risk assessment process. The process should define risk assessment criteria, risk acceptance criteria, methods for evaluating risks. The organization should ensure risk assessments are consistent, repeatable, and reliable. Identifying information security risks. Organizations must identify information security risks related to the loss of confidentiality, unauthorized disclosure of information, integrity, unauthorized modification or destruction of information, availability, inability to access information when needed. Examples of risks include unauthorized access to systems, data breaches, malware attacks, phishing attacks, insider threats, hardware failures, human errors, physical theft of devices. The organization should also identify risk owners. Risk owners are individuals responsible for monitoring and managing identified risks. Risk analysis. After identifying risks, the organization must analyze them. Risk analysis involves assessing the possible consequences if a risk occurs, evaluating the likelihood of occurrence, determining the level of risk. Organizations commonly use qualitative or quantitative methods such as risk matrices for evaluation. This process helps prioritize risks according to severity. Risk evaluation. Once risks are analyzed, the organization compares them against predefined risk criteria. The purpose is to determine which risks are acceptable, which risks require treatment, which risks need immediate attention. Higher risk issues are usually prioritized for treatment. The organization must maintain documented information regarding the risk assessment process and results. Information security risk treatment. After risk assessment, the organization must determine how identified risks will be treated. Risk treatment options generally include avoiding the risk, reducing the risk, sharing or transferring the risk, accepting the risk. Appropriate controls are selected to reduce risks to acceptable levels. The organization must determine all necessary controls required for implementing selected risk treatment options. Controls may be selected from Annex A Controls, legal requirements, industry best practices, customer requirements, internal organizational policies. Organizations may also design additional controls if required. The organization must compare selected controls with Annex A to ensure no important controls are missed. Annex A acts as a reference list of possible information security controls. However, Annex A controls are not exhaustive. Organizations can implement additional controls based on their specific risks and business needs. The organization must prepare a statement of applicability, commonly known as the SOA. The SOA is one of the most important documents in ISO 27001. It contains selected controls, justification for inclusion, implementation status, reasons for excluding controls, Auditors frequently review the SOA during certification and surveillance audits. The organization must create a formal risk treatment plan. This plan should define actions to be taken, responsible persons, required resources, implementation timelines, expected outcomes. Residual risks must be approved and accepted by the respective risk owners. Organizations must establish information security objectives at relevant functions and levels. These objectives should align with the information security policy, support business goals, be measurable wherever practical. Examples include reducing security incidents, improving employee awareness levels, reducing system downtime, enhancing access control effectiveness. Information security objectives should take into account applicable requirements, consider results from risk assessment and treatment, be monitored regularly, be communicated within the organization, be updated whenever necessary, be maintained as documented information. Objectives help organizations measure ISMS performance effectively. Planning to achieve objectives. When planning how to achieve objectives, the organization must determine what actions will be taken, what resources are required, who will be responsible, completion timelines, how results will be evaluated. Proper planning ensures systematic implementation and monitoring. Planning of changes. Whenever changes to the ISMS are required, the organization must ensure they are carried out in a planned manner. Uncontrolled changes may introduce new vulnerabilities or operational risks. Organizations should evaluate the impact of changes before implementation. The organization must determine and provide all resources necessary for establishing the ISMS, implementing the ISMS, maintaining the ISMS, continually improving the ISMS. Resources may include employees, technology, infrastructure, training, financial support, competence. The organization must determine the competence required for persons performing work that affects information security performance. Competence may be developed through education, training, experience, skill development, mentoring. The organization must also evaluate whether competency development activities are effective. Experience, skill development, mentoring. The organization must also evaluate whether competency development activities are effective. Awareness. Employees working under the organization's control must be aware of the information security policy, their contribution to ISMS effectiveness, benefits of improved information security, consequences of failing to comply with ISMS requirements. Employee awareness significantly influences information security performance. Importance of awareness. Employees should understand risks associated with careless activities such as weak password practices, unauthorized sharing of information, clicking suspicious links or emails, improper handling of documents, failure to report incidents. Regular awareness training helps build a strong security culture. Organizations must determine requirements for internal and external communication related to the ISMS. This includes deciding what to communicate, when to communicate, whom to communicate with, how communication should occur. Effective communication improves coordination and security awareness. Documented information. The ISMS must include documented information required by ISO 27001 and additional documentation necessary for effectiveness. Examples include policies, procedures, risk assessments, audit reports, security records, control evidence. Documentation supports consistency and traceability. The extent of documented information may vary depending on organization size, nature of activities, complexity of processes, competence of personnel. Smaller organizations may require simpler documentation systems compared to large enterprises. Creating and updating documents. When creating and updating documents, the organization should ensure proper identification, version control, suitable format, review and approval, clear descriptions. This ensures employees always use the correct and latest version. Control of documented information. Documented information must be controlled to ensure availability when needed. Protection from unauthorized access. Protection against loss of confidentiality. Protection against improper modification. Protection against loss of integrity. Proper document control is essential for maintaining system reliability. Document control activities. Organizations should manage activities such as distribution, access control, retrieval, storage, preservation, version control, retention and disposal. These controls ensure documentation remains accurate, accessible, and secure. External document control. External documents necessary for the ISMS must also be identified and controlled. Examples include legal regulations, customer requirements, industry standards, vendor manuals. Organizations should ensure employees access only updated and authorized versions. Access permissions for documents. Access control applies not only to IT systems but also to documented information. Organizations should define who can access documents, who can edit documents, who can approve changes. This helps maintain confidentiality and integrity of information. Organizations should define who can access documents, who can edit documents, who can approve changes. This helps maintain confidentiality and integrity of information. Operational planning and control. Organizations must plan, implement, and control processes required to meet ISMS requirements. Operational planning ensures processes are performed consistently and effectively. Organizations should establish operational criteria and monitor process performance. The organization must maintain documented information necessary to demonstrate that processes are carried out as planned. Examples include logs, reports, monitoring records, system-generated evidence. Operational records support audit verification activities. Reports, monitoring records, system-generated evidence. Operational records support audit verification activities. Methods for monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. The organization must establish suitable methods for monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. The selected methods should ensure that results are accurate, reliable, comparable, reproducible. For example, organizations may use security dashboards, performance indicators, incident tracking systems, audit findings, monitoring software. These methods help management evaluate whether information security controls are functioning effectively. Internal audit. 9.2.1 General. Organizations must conduct internal audits at planned intervals. The purpose of internal audits is to verify whether the information security management system conforms to the organization's own ISMS requirements, conforms to ISO/IEC 27001:2022 requirements, is effectively implemented and maintained. Internal audits are extremely important because they help organizations identify gaps before external certification audits. Internal audit program. The organization must establish, implement, and maintain an internal audit program. The audit program should include audit frequency, audit methods, responsibilities, planning requirements, reporting procedures. The program should ensure audits are systematic, objective, and risk-based. Audit planning considerations. While preparing the internal audit program, the organization should consider the importance of processes, results of previous audits, areas with higher risks, previous nonconformities. Processes with repeated issues may require more frequent or detailed audits. This helps organizations focus resources on critical areas. Audit criteria, scope, and auditor selection. For each audit, the organization must define audit criteria, define audit scope, select competent auditors, ensure objectivity and impartiality. Auditors should not audit their own work to maintain independence. Audit results should be communicated to relevant management for necessary action. Audit records and evidence. The organization must maintain documented information as evidence of implementation of the audit program, audit findings, audit conclusions, corrective actions, follow-up activities. These records are important during certification audits and management reviews. Top management must review the information security management system at planned intervals. The purpose of management review is to ensure the ISMS remains suitable, adequate, effective, aligned with organizational objectives and business strategy. Management review demonstrates leadership involvement in information security. Management review inputs. Management review should include consideration of status of actions from previous management reviews, changes in internal and external issues, changes affecting the ISMS, performance information, audit results, corrective actions, improvement opportunities. These inputs help management make informed strategic decisions. Management reviews should also consider changes in customer expectations, regulatory and legal changes, stakeholder requirements, business environment changes, technology-related developments. This helps ensure the ISMS continues to meet organizational and stakeholder expectations. Continual improvement. Organizations must continually improve the suitability, adequacy, effectiveness of the information security management system. Continual improvement is a core principle of ISO management system standards. Improvement activities may involve enhancing controls, updating policies, improving awareness programs, strengthening monitoring systems, improving risk management processes, nonconformity and corrective action. Whenever a nonconformity occurs, the organization must react to the nonconformity, take action to control and correct it, deal with consequences, evaluate the need for corrective action. The purpose is not only to solve the problem temporarily but also to prevent recurrence. Root cause analysis. Organizations should investigate why the nonconformity occurred, what caused the issue, whether similar nonconformities exist elsewhere. Root cause analysis is important because simply correcting symptoms without identifying actual causes may lead to repeated failures. Effective root cause analysis strengthens system reliability. Corrective action implementation. Organizations must implement necessary corrective actions and review their effectiveness. Corrective actions should be appropriate to the severity and impact of the nonconformity. If necessary, organizations should update policies, procedures, controls, risk assessments, training programs. This ensures continual strengthening of the ISMS. Corrective action records. Organizations must retain documented information as evidence of nature of the nonconformity, actions taken, corrective action results, effectiveness of corrective actions. These records demonstrate accountability and support continual improvement activities. ISO/IEC 27001:2022 Annex A Overview. Annex A of ISO/IEC 27001:2022 contains 93 information security controls. These controls are grouped into 4 major domains. Organizational controls, 37. People controls, 8. Physical controls, 14. Technological controls, 34. Annex A provides a structured reference for selecting information security controls based on organizational risks. 8.5 Organizational controls. Organizational controls focus on governance, policies, procedures, and administrative management of information security. Examples include information security policies, roles and responsibilities, asset management, access control management, supplier security, incident management, legal and compliance requirements. These controls establish the management framework for information security. 8.6 People controls. People controls focus on human-related security risks. Examples include background verification, awareness and training, information security responsibilities, non-disclosure agreements, remote working security, reporting of security events. Since human error is a major cause of security incidents, people controls are extremely important. 8.7 Physical controls. Physical controls protect physical infrastructure, facilities, and assets. Examples include physical access restrictions, CCTV monitoring, secure office areas, equipment protection, clear desk and clear screen policies, secure disposal of information assets. Physical security helps prevent unauthorized access, theft, and damage. 8.8 Technological controls. Technological controls focus on protecting information systems, applications, and networks. Examples include access control systems, data backups, logging and monitoring, network security, cryptography and encryption, secure software development. These controls help organizations reduce cybersecurity risks and technical vulnerabilities. Important concept about Annex A controls. One important point to understand is that not all 93 Annex A controls are mandatory. Controls are selected based on risk assessment results, business requirements, legal and contractual obligations, organizational context. Selected controls and their justification are documented in the Statement of Applicability. This demonstrates the risk-based nature of ISO/IEC 27001. Audit perspective. From an auditor's perspective, the focus should be on risk-based selection of controls, effectiveness of implemented controls, availability of objective evidence, employee awareness, integration of ISMS into business operations. Auditors should evaluate whether the ISMS is functioning effectively in real organizational situations. Closing remarks. Introduction. As we come to the end of this training session, let us briefly reflect on what we have covered. We explored the structure of ISO/IEC 27001:2022 and understood how organizations establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve an information security management system. We also discussed risk assessment, control implementation, internal audits, management reviews, and continual improvement. One important takeaway from this session is that information security is not merely a technical requirement. It is a strategic business responsibility. Every organization handles valuable information and therefore must ensure appropriate protection of that information. Strong information security practices improve customer trust, business continuity, operational resilience, regulatory compliance, organizational reputation. Benefits of ISO/IEC 27001. ISO/IEC 27001 provides a systematic and risk-based framework for protecting information. The standard helps organizations ensure confidentiality, integrity, availability. When implemented effectively, ISO 27001 not only protects data but also strengthens governance, accountability, and business confidence. Auditor's perspective and key learning. From an auditor's perspective, always remember: focus on risks and treatment methods. Understand the purpose behind controls. Look for objective evidence. Evaluate implementation effectiveness. Assess integration with organizational processes. Auditing is not simply checking documents. It is evaluating whether the management system actually works in practice. Opportunities for professionals and organizations. ISO/IEC 27001 creates valuable opportunities for auditors, consultants, compliance professionals, risk managers, cybersecurity professionals. Organizations implementing ISO 27001 improve their ability to manage risks and build stakeholder confidence. Learning ISO/IEC 27001 is not a one-time activity. It is a continuous journey involving risk identification, control implementation, monitoring, evaluation, continual improvement. Organizations must continuously adapt to changing technologies, risks, and business requirements. Thank you for your valuable time and active participation throughout this training session. I hope this session has strengthened your understanding of ISO/IEC 27001:2022 and provided practical insights into implementation, auditing, and information security management systems. Wishing all participants great success in their professional journey. Thank you once again. I sincerely appreciate your patience, participation, and interest throughout this session. I encourage all participants to continue exploring information security concepts and apply this knowledge in practical organizational environments. Consistent learning and practical implementation are the keys to becoming effective ISMS professionals.